Our speaker today handles music clearance and licensing administration for on air promos and marketing campaigns for Turner Networks, including TNT, TBS, TCM, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Turner Sports, NBA TV, and NCAA championships, True TV, and international networks, plus commercial music used within programming for various series, TV movies on the TNT and True TV networks. She does a lot, you guys. So this lady has a lot of knowledge. She's ready to share with all of us. So give a round of applause for our instructor, Janet Wade. We'll welcome her out here right now. Right. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so impressed y'all came out through a snowstorm to see me today. Wow.
So exciting, huh? They really wanted to hear from you today. That's why. You should be good. All right. So I wanted to start off just opening up, get straight to the point here. How does an individual even go about obtaining a music license?
You're talking about like a synchronization license?
Yes.
Okay, well, it depends on,
The type of license.
right. I mean, if you're a producer or if you're producing a program or
We'll start off with producers because there's a lot of producers in the room.
as far as a show producer.
Me- me-
Well,
Music.
okay, I'll just, you're asking about licensing. Okay, it's, okay, usually if you're in a production, you're creating a production, and you need to license, you're going to put music inside that production. And I call it a production because that would mean it's either on a television, a film, an internet production, anything that's in that production. When you need to put music in that, what you need, the overall licensing is called sync licensing, but actually sync licensing, that's just the generic term. That actually includes two different kinds of licenses. That there's the two different kinds of licenses. One is the master recording license, and that's the one with the person who owns the recording. It could be the record label, it could be the artist, but whoever owns that recording. That's the first license that's needed. The second one, which is called the synchronization license, that is with the publishing. So it's whoever owns the publishing. So just the overall term is called sync licensing, but it encompasses the master and the sync, which is the publishing. Now, obviously, but if you're doing in that production, if you just have your artist or you're just singing in that, and you're not using that someone's pre-recorded recording, then all you need is that sync license, the publishing license.
All right, she came in with a lot of information there. So we talked about sync licensing, synchronization license, right? I wanted to know, what is a mechanical license? What's the difference between that and a synchronization license?
Okay, the mechanical license is the license that goes with the actual recording. That's in the different, but that doesn't have to do with any production. That has to do with the mechanical license has to do with the song that's on the album meaning the CD.
Okay. And there are a number, all of my producers, raise their hands one more time. There's a lot of producers in here, Janet. So as producers, are there certain genres of music that are more prone for licensing through major TV series?
Not really. Not really. I'm seeing all kinds of music really now. There could be, because I license every genre of music. It doesn't really, there's not really
A specific
yeah.
genre.
Although, it's funny when I hear things, say if I get a submission or something and I listen to something, though, I can say, oh, that's good for sports, or no, that's good for a TNT promo, or that might be good for the, so it's not really, maybe it's more, not really so much the genre as I want to say that the beat. I mean, if I get something like, for instance, the sports, they like stuff that's really high energy and really upbeat. And they used to use a lot more. It used to be kind of more, mostly when more urban but now, I mean, it's really all genre, just an upbeat kind of a sound.
Gotcha.
Whereas I think you'll hear more of a ballad kind of a balladish kind of thing. I might put that with something else like a TCM, promo, or if it's with a something more a different kind of. So it's really just the sound. It's not necessarily a genre anymore. I mean, all kinds of music is licensed.
Yeah, because at this point we're kind of integrating sounds anyway. There's really no such thing as a specific genre for producers at this point. I wanted to ask because we have producers and artists as well, and a lot of times you have Kanye West, you have Travis Scott. Everybody samples. Everybody loves to sample music. How does an artist obtain permission to use a sample? Is that something you?
Yeah, well, that's really kind of a record label question, but
Sure.
I would like to comment on that for as far as the sync licensing on here. I know that a lot of times if someone has done an album and they've sampled, and then I don't know. I mean, they can sample. I mean, I don't know. This is more a record label question, so you'd have to ask, the record executive about that. But it's not been cleared or approved. I mean, I want to say that there's a lot of big, and I'm not going to name the names, but a lot of big releases out there, and the samples weren't cleared, and they're on the YouTube, and they're major releases. But then that really doesn't give a good life to that music, because what happens is now if I go and I want to use this, oh, I love this, and I want to use this in something in sports, and I go to the record label and they say, well, these samples weren't cleared by the original artist, so we can't do it. So in other words, there's no life beyond that. So you do want to make sure, and it's really, if you're with the record label, whatever, that your samples are cleared 100%, because it does make your music much more marketable.
Right, and maybe let's just try to create our original music. It kind of strays away from even sampling in the first place. We have artists also in the room as well, and a big thing is covering other music. Is it necessary for when performing covers to license that? Is licensing even necessary if you're performing covers?
When you're recording that. No, I mean, you're putting it on the album, then you'd have to get you have to get your mechanical license, but it's you could cover.
What's the financial cost behind getting or a typical fee of a music license in general?
That depends on what you're doing.
So give us an example of something that you, on your daily basis, like what you're clearing, if you run into any like financial fees that are associated with the clearance and licensing.
Well, as far as, so this is another difference with mechanical licensing and sync licensing, is that mechanical licensing goes on, it's called a statutory rate. So there's a set fee, which is which it is negotiable to an extent, but there is a statutory rate that's set, and that's usually on a per album sold. But with sync licensing, it's 100%. It's all negotiated, and so that's what I do. I negotiate the deals. So when it's all negotiated, you can, I could say, well, there really is, a range, because it depends, but it really depends on the media, and there's certain media like. If you're in a feature film, your song's in a feature film, then you're getting what's called all media now known hereafter devised worldwide in perpetuity. That's an overall encompassing. Yeah. Well, that's an overall encompassing license. That means that song, it's in that feature film, and we actually get that a lot for television shows as well. But that means that it's okay. You don't have to ever go back and license that again and pay anything else. But then there are a lot of projects, I'll say, like on a promotional campaign, where you have it's very specific. I want to say, like, say if I'm clearing something for a sports broadcast, it's only going to be airing that one time, so I'm only clearing it for one network. So that's very limited. It's one network and then probably an internet stream. So then you have a very limited license. So there's a broad range, but all of that still is negotiated. And then as far as with fees, because it is negotiated, I mean, you could go say with the all media license on the feature, which is the higher end. I mean, that could be in the six-figure range.
Oh,
But
wow.
it could also be if you're getting I've done things that are new artists starting out. They just want their exposure,
Right.
and it could be as low as like a $5,000 range. So it's really a range in there, and it
It could
depends.
vary. Yeah, and then speaking of the range as far as like independent artists, I'm sure many of you are independent artists and just trying to get exposure. I read somewhere that a lot of filmmakers and just independent filmmakers are reaching out to independent artists as far as getting independent artists music. What is like do you know the base rate of getting that music cleared as far as a filmmaker if they're reaching out to an artist?
Well, again, it depends. It depends on a lot of things. A key thing, it depends on the budget. Is it a low budget film?
Right.
If it's a I mean, it's not. I mean, they're not necessarily. I want to say they're not necessarily going to that artist because they think, oh, they're going to be a lot cheaper than if I get Kanye West. They might be
Okay.
going to that artist because they want a fresh new sound,
Right.
and that happens a lot. They just want and so, but then there's look, we've got so much production going on here in Georgia, but it's not everybody has these big huge budgets
Exactly.
in them at the music, so. But it might be their budget it depends on the budget. It would be a range.
Right. Okay. And we spoke about we spoke about mechanical licensing, but there are different mechanical licenses. So we can get into the compulsory license as well as the negotiated music mechanical license. Could you tell me the difference between those two?
Well, let's see. There's the mechanical license that relates to what's the one that's for an album for release. Then, but a negotiated one, I used to do that. That's where you're negotiating directly with the publisher for a lower rates. It's because you're selling the product at a lower amount. So say you're selling like the CDs you see at Walmart that are $5.99. That's why they're able to sell them for cheaper because because they've negotiated reduced royalty rates on it, and they can do that because the publisher would agree to that because they realize they're probably going to sell a large volume of those $5.99 CDs. So it's sort of they're still making the money because they're selling a lot more CDs than they are selling with the one that's $23.
Right. But how do you even go about negotiating your rights, especially for music and film? Like, how do you go about negotiating your rights? Say, for instance, this is not about copyrights or any of that, but as an artist, someone in here or a producer, they may not know how to even go about the negotiation process.
To be used in the film?
Yes. Is that something you can speak on?
Yeah, well, sure. So even if someone comes to the artist and wants to,
like how I spoke about the independent filmmakers, say they reached out to an independent artist and they're asking, hey, we want to use your music. How does the artist go about negotiating that range into?
Well, again, the first thing is that producer is going to come to them and they're going to ask them. They're going to probably tell them, I want this for this film. I need it for. I want to clear it for all media. Known or have devised worldwide perpetuity standard. Film rights. I got a budget. This is how this is how much I have to spend. Can you do this? So,
but as far as their rights, like, does the artist have ownership at that point, or what kind of
no,
royalties?
well, it depends on the artist's deal. I mean,
Right.
do they own it? Do they now do they own it, or does the record label own it?
Okay.
And that's a big thing too, because sometimes artists will do that and then they don't really even own the rights. They can't. I mean, this happens even with big artists. I get this sometimes with big artists, and some artists will have a friend and oh yeah, you can use my song in this show, but then they don't really even own it. It's
Right.
actually the record label that owns it, and then there's of course the music publishers involved. So yeah, it just depends on how it's kind of split out.
Gotcha. So there's like a hierarchy in a sense. Like there's multiple people involved that you have to just know those parties that are involved with the rights. Of the
Well,
song.
yeah, usually. I mean, there is a lot more independent artists though that might be that could be representing themselves. And if they're representing themselves, then they really should understand about, all of their business side. And that's one thing that's good. Everybody who's here, that they're learning.
Right.
They're learning about the business because they need to understand what they're giving away.
So I know earlier we were talking about you work a lot with the sports shows and broadcasting with Turner. What is a bumper in regards to music and used in television?
That's just one of the places where we place music on the production. There's usually we have on sports. If you watch any kind of, like I said, I work on all the NBA on TNT. There's the teases, and then there's the bumpers, and the teases are usually when you see on the opening of the game, and you see that piece of music that's in there. It's cut with basketball footage, and that's called the tease, and it's usually about a minute to minute and a half in length. And then what a bumper is, it could be a similar thing, but that's generally, it's a timing thing. It would be, the bumper it's called a bumper because what it means is it's bumping out to the commercial.
Gotcha.
So it's bumping in or it's bumping out, and that is usually and that's a lot less in length. That's usually 30. It's somewhere around 20, 30 seconds.
Okay. Cool. And when you're clearing, when you're in regards to music clearance, we spoke about clearing your rights and everything. But what is a music clearance? Like, what is that? Can you give us a definition for music clearance?
Well, this is always like my standard terms I'm used to saying. Although I don't realize it's like,
and maybe in layman's
I forget
terms.
when people don't realize what it is. No, it's just music clearance. It's just that the whole the music clearance is that it's clearing the rights to the music. I mean, if you're a producer and you say, I need to get it, you want to use the music in the show, you'd say, okay, I got to get a music clearance.
Right. And so maybe to just make it, because I'm sure this sounds like, I know for me it sounded very foreign and a little like almost another language in a sense. So could you tell us maybe your day-to-day, something that you've run into? Like, I know we spoke about a show earlier with some artist and you having to clear the song in just a few minutes or a few hours before they even go on. Just something you experience in your day-to-day work life.
As far as doing
the clearance and of the music before they even perform on a broadcast.
Okay, well, just basically, that's, in a music clearance, it would be, I'll just give you this step by step. It would be, it's actually not as exciting as people say, oh, that must be fun, but it's that you're the producer, you say, you're doing this production, you say you want to use this song in the show. So then when you ask me, I say, what I have to do is I have to do a lot of research. I have to find out, I'm the one, first of all, I have to determine who owns the rights to that music. I'd have to do the research. I have to determine, first I'll research who released it, or if it was on a CD, or then I'll have to go to the record label, and then I say, well, I want to use this song in this broadcast that's airing. They're not usually one day. It usually takes at least a week. So I want to air it as something that's airing next week, or I want to use it in the All-Star game that's coming up as a tease. And I have to provide all the information. I have to say I want to use it it's a one-time use on one network. It's going to be 30 seconds. It's going to be, it's in a scene where it's the background. I have to be very exact, because when you do a music clearance, you're clearing it for that specific use.
Right.
So I have to explain what it's being used for, and then they negotiate the money on that. And then, so that's one part of it. And then, of course, I have to go then determine the same thing. I have to determine who are the publishers on that and who own the rights to the publishing. Then I have to approach the publishers, and I have to do the same thing. I have to go to the publishers and I say, we want to use this song on this production, and give them the same info. We want to do this, and then I'm also negotiating the money with them, so that it all kind of comes out.
Gotcha. Right. And there are also several licensing or licenses what is a master use license?
Well, that's what I said before. That was there's the master use, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's the music synchronization. The master use is the record label,
Mm-hmm.
and then the synchronization is the publishing.
And we didn't discuss blanket licensing. What would that be? Is that a difference between those
Well,
three?
yeah, no, a blanket license is if you're Sony Music and when we negotiate a deal with you that we can use any of your music, for a set fee, but then we use it however we want to use it. We don't normally, I don't usually work with those. Um, I kind of do a use by use basis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think those are that great a deal because what if you could be using something for, want to use something that's for a couple seconds, and then you could want to have something that's major theme, So
Right.
I mean, if you're a new artist, you're not going to want to do something like that. But that's what it is. It's where blanket agreement just means that you as a company have done an agreement with this producer, and then that producer then has the rights to use your music in any way, in any form, anything for the period of that license.
Okay. And so stay away from the blanket license for our independent artists out
Well,
there.
yeah, I mean, it
Stray away
depends. I
from
mean,
it
but it depends.
on the
I
deal.
mean, there could be. I don't want to say there could be a good deal. I mean, if say you are the independent artist, and then you're wanting to work on there's a feature film,
Mm-hmm.
and this is one of these low budget or whatever feature film, and they say, well, I want to do a blanket agreement with you for that to use your music, in my film. That might not be a bad deal. I mean, you
Right.
could make a good bit of money, and then they're using your music throughout. It could be as a theme, or just So that's not necessarily a bad deal.
Yeah, so I guess it just varies. I don't know. As an artist, I would need a consultant for something like this. I feel like it's like a trial and error type of thing, but you guys just happy you're here so we can learn a little bit more about it. What is a public domain in regards to music licensing and clearance?
Public domain is when it's refers to it's music that doesn't have to be licensed because it's a certain age, or it's a traditional piece.
Such as, could you give us an example?
Amazing Grace.
Like a hymn.
Well, that's a
Almost.
hymn, and that falls in. But usually, there's public domain. There's music that's in the public domain. It's after a certain number of years, and it keeps kind of changing. I think it could be 75 years, but there's a whole formula to that. But it's anything that's in the public domain means it's either old or also because there's public domain, and then there's another term. It's traditional, and that's a song that might be. But yeah, usually like hymns, a lot of the classical music falls into that.
Word. Awesome.
So actually, what I say with that, though, one thing you have to realize when you're licensing something is say you're licensing a track that's Amazing Grace, right? You don't have to get a sync license because the song is in the public domain, but you still have to get the master use license because somebody's recording that, and you have to license that recording. So you're still licensing the recording, and that's one thing I have to tell my producers. They still have to license the recorded version of it, even though they're not having to license the publishing part of it.
Wow. Wow. It's just so many facets of the music licensing and clearance. Could you tell me like the most exciting? I know you said, oh, it's not that exciting, but what's the most exciting part of your job? What do you look forward to doing? Is it working with the artist or?
I like that every day is different. Every day is different. Every project is different. Nothing's the same. Part of what I said, because I work with a lot of the promos and advertising and marketing. I'm not necessarily just working on films or TV shows. I mean, that's sort of be the same, but every day is different. And I think one thing that's really great for the music industry too is because they're finding with all this new media and all of these, there's so many new ways that people are using music that every day. I mean, I said in these marketing people and that I deal with, or the promo people, and they come. We have this idea of that we want to use. We want to create this and do this and that. And so what I have to do is then I have to take that, formulate that, translate that, what they want to do into clearance terms that I would have to for me to get from somebody. So they'll have these just phenomenal ideas of it's just of doing something, but it's involving something that was that's some sort of new media ish kind of thing that's just kind of and then to figure it out, we want to do this interactive thing online and so I mean I
Right.
kind of have to figure that out, and but it's every day is different, and then it said, and then with the industry changing as far as all with this new media and all these different new and different ways to use music, I just think that's fun.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting. So with technology changing, are also like rights and clearance. Do you have to? Are there things changing and regulations for that as well?
Yes, yeah, that's changing a lot. It's even changing. That changes daily, and then more things, and the more kind of media that could come up with, and the more kind of things that we have to deal with, and some of them not makes it, and some things some make it a little more difficult for us, for the producers, because and just relating to, you get that new media, and then okay, of course, then the publisher wants to get paid. It's something to do with the performance society, is in this, or regulating on the internet side, or
Right.
or YouTube, or
Oh, YouTube.
Facebook. People music on Facebook, and Facebook isn't paying performance. I mean, it just kind of then it filters down to us, because then it limits our producers on
Right.
what we can do and like that. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's just with all the new media. Then it's changing, and and then of course the publishers want to get paid, and
Speaking of YouTube, I create a lot of different series on YouTube, and no matter what, if I put in any type of artist, especially those associated with certain management and companies, it's immediately taken down, like immediately. How can an independent artist track their music online, like digitally? Is there some way? I'm sure
yeah,
it's
I don't.
easier with the label, but or maybe that's a label question as well.
Yeah, I don't know how they track it online. That's something that they'd have to deal with on with the
YouTube.
YouTube.
Hmm.
Yeah. I want to say though that if you have stuff on YouTube that's not your music, I mean, you got to make sure it's
Well,
licensed.
I guess my question was more so if they have their own music and people are using that, an independent artist's music, how can they even
Oh, I
track
think
that?
that's a YouTube question.
True.
I think it's a YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. I
I just
think
have to ask.
that's one of those areas right now that I think I said I'm dealing with a lot of issues right now with social media, and social media is not, because everybody's putting their music on social media, and then a lot of these social media sites are not, you know, dealing with. And that's more like a PRO thing.
Got you. And
Because we do. I mean, that's a lot of our now. I mean, that's for advertising and everything. That's how we're doing a lot of our advertising now. Is, I mean, everybody does. It's social media. I mean, that's the best thing on the planet. I mean, it's like, instead of, it used to be you'd have to go buy a billboard or rent a page in billboard or something. Now you just
by
put it on
promotion, yeah.
you just put it on Facebook.
Right. And just up that. Yeah. How do you typically stay up to date with the licensing since it changes? I'm sure you, since you do this daily, that you are updated more. But for an artist or a producer, how do they stay in the know? Like how do we find out aside from Google? Like
I tell you, it's difficult. We just got to. It said it is evolving, and you just have to keep up. You just have to try to keep up. And it said, I mean, a lot of this, these kind of things. I mean, it said, but in the end, I mean, just doing, you said, the master and the sync kind of licensing process, that doesn't change. I mean, that's the same.
yeah,
And so
standard.
it's a lot of this other kind of outside stuff there with having to do with the PROs and this kind of stuff. That stuff will change. But, as far as the process and doing that, and just, I mean, that's been around for forever. I mean, we just, you just have to get, the master license, the sync license, your publishing and all that. And that's, that stays the same.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to kind of open it up for questions. Um, Eager. I'm sorry. Give me one moment. I want everyone to be able to hear your question.
Great, I get to hear my voice. When trying to obtain a synchronization license for placement, you talk a lot about dealing with the record label because you're trying to obtain the master recording rights to that and the publishing. Um, does dealing with a record label, are you more apt to work with a label than an independent artist just because that's what you're more used to, or are you looking more toward independent artists who maybe own the master recording and the publishing? Does that sort of make a difference in what your decision making process, like, will it help an artist to get placement if they do have a label, or does it really not make any difference?
No, the answer is no. It doesn't make any difference. Not anymore. Not anymore. There's a lot of independent artists. What it really depends on is the professional quality of what you have. If you're going to not be with a record label, which is said a lot, that's fine. But as long as you have good quality material. I mean, and I said because I used an independent artist for and which actually did a big NBA theme. I mean, he said he just represented himself. This was a few years ago. Just but you have to have. I mean, he had a video but you have to have a good quality. The good. Very extremely high quality. It can't be something just like studio quality stuff. And then you can. That's because when they're putting on things, I'm putting something on a show or promo or whatever, they really require it has to be very high level of music. But it doesn't really matter. You don't necessarily have to be a label.
So as long as the master recording sounds good, and it needs to because it's going through a television set. Television sounds horrible if it's not recorded well. So, okay, so basically it's just a quality. If you're an independent artist, that's got to be up to snuff to be considered.
Yeah, it's a quality. Yeah, it doesn't matter about that. And then usually, of course, you don't have to get for the promo. We have to get both the vocal track and the instrumental track separately because when they cut a promo, they have to cut it up because you don't have dialogue over any vocals. So, but you just yeah.
We have a question right here, and I'll grab it.
Quick question. I wanted to ask you: does vulgar content alter that decision? So, like, obviously you'll have a quality track, but when it comes down to like what you say on the song, does that alter the decision of the person that's trying to get that song in production?
I'll say yes. That, of course, we'd use a clean version of something because there's, for the most part, although a lot of stuff that's in the cable, but it's like even in sports or something. I mean, something that's they're not gonna. They're gonna use a clean edit on things.
All right, our next question right here, young lady. Did you have a question?
If you have a song in a movie or something, or television, but it's like a variation of a song, like in The Great Gatsby, there are several versions of The Young and Beautiful. Do each of those need to be licensed?
You mean you have several different versions of a song that you've written, or
Yeah, and it's one song, but there's different like genres. Maybe you have a jazz version. Would each of those need to be licensed?
well, those are then just different arrangements of the same song, right? But you've written the underlying song. Okay, so you've written your own song, but then you've done different arrangements of that song. So basically, right? So it's still the same song, but then you already own it.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're having the different arrangements on that song. I don't. See, that's kind of like between you and your. If you're, it's still with your same publishing. You still have the same publishing. It might just be if you have a different arranger, then you might have a different writer, extra writers. And then it might, if say with your ASCAP, and then you might have, it'll be listed a few times with different certain different, like a remix. Different. Every remix is different, but it's just still. It kind of is. if you're licensing that, it's still listed as it's a different song, but if it's got different writers, like I said, I'll say like all these remix, because I license a lot of like remix on this, and you'll have extra writers, which might have extra publishers, because each of those writers will have their own publishing. So if you have the same song, but you've done it really different, you're probably going to call it some other version.
Pass it over here. Excuse me.
Quick question for us aspiring artists, producers, and everything like that. How do we get music to you? And do you do like consultations and stuff like that on a serious note?
Yeah, I usually, it's like, well, when I meet people at things like this, or I think if you do a lot of networking and then I meet people at things such like this, and then say oh, I met you here, whatever, and sometimes some people they have some great music that can come out of that. I do that. I have done consultation before. I have done that before. I used to have a business with that, but
All right, our next question.
So how do we know like what you're looking for? Like as far as is there a newsletter that goes out that says, hey, we're looking for this type of genre, this type of sound, or something like that?
no, it's really not. Said now for what I see, when I do music clearance and licensing, it's what usually the producers, especially and this is more so in like a sports or a promos or advertising, they know what they want. They're the ones they're picking their own music. I mean, I'll say it's different when you get into like a TV show, or because if you've got a background kind of a use. It's a little bit longer answer, I think, but if the background use, I mean, that could be multiple things. I mean, if you say, if you could have a producer just says, I want something that's for a dance scene or something like that, and that could be a variety of different things. But then when you get to a specific, like a sports kind of thing, or a promo or marketing campaign where the music is integral, and they're having to cut a lot of visuals in there with it, then the music is very, very, very specific, and that music has to be chosen by the creative person. So it's really their vision. I mean, I might have stuff. I mean, I've gotten stuff before. I get pitches from a lot of the labels and publishers, and everybody pitches me, and if I hear something, but if I send it to them, and they'll have a vision, and they might think, oh, that would be great for this. I want to keep that. So because it's a whole different kind of licensing in that way. Like I said, then so to answer your question, what are looking for? I mean, really, don't know. It's just kind of then if I know, I have relationships with different. With different, like say a publisher or or a rep or something, or a library or something. I say, oh, I need, I need a something I can license, use for tonight's game or something like that. Then it's like that, but it's.
So, I mean, as a producer or artist, is there a way for us to find out beforehand so we can craft what we make to what, somebody is looking for? Like, or are we just submitting in the dark, basically?
Well, I think you have to do your research about what you're. Like we say, say you're. You know what shows are out there or what productions are out there, and you know what kind of music that they use, and then you get, then you could just pitch to that for that specific project, because already. I mean, I see emails sometimes, and they say, I got this song, it would be perfect for blah, blah, Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but a lot of time, you have to, it's like you doing your homework on what's already out there. Not necessarily what, you don't. I mean, you're not going to know what that I'm needing, looking for music for a something that fell out and I need for tonight. You're not going to know that, but you'll know that your specific music would be perfect for a specific kind of project that's out there. It might be one of mine, might be something that HBO's. You'll know that, and then you pitch for that particular project, because all the shows usually have their own genre of music. I mean, there's some, you sure some shows you might see they use all oldies music, or they use, or some shows they use all super pop music. I mean, it just depends. But it's up kind of, you do your homework and you do your research on that, so that you're writing for that kind of thing, or maybe say. Maybe you are want to do something sports, and then you have you're writing music that has some kind of a catchy thing that has to do with, MLB or NBA or something. Say you're doing something like that. So if that's what you're asking, if you're writing something like you want to specifically pitch to a certain something.
Next question. Did you have one?
Hi, and I guess this is kind of caveat off of his question, but just to clarify, um, I think what I'm hearing from, and I had pretty much the exact same question as far as knowing how do we know what projects are coming up, and what they may be looking for. And I think what I heard was that you have to have some type of relationship if it's going to be a marketable, and advantageous for the producer. That you need to establish some type of relationship with producers that are out there, because at the end of the day, it's pretty much their uh, thought process, or what they're looking for. They know what they're looking for, and just to be openly submitting music to you may not benefit the artist, or producer, if you don't know exactly what you're curtailing that for.
Well, not even necessarily you have the relationship with this producer. I said that just be knowledgeable of what kind of music that is using, if that show is using. Because I get pitches from people, I don't know who they are. I've never met them before, or I don't know. I don't know where. I'm on some list somewhere. So I'm sure that everybody who's finding music is on some list. But then these people are saying, I think this is perfect for. So I don't even have any relationship with, say, this particular person. I know there was somebody in Nashville who contacted me last year and said, oh, he wrote one song. It was called "Are You Ready?" And I don't know, we must found me off of some list or something, sent me this track, and it was, have you heard it, Curtis? Oh, okay. Well, no, it's funny. It was, but it was. He sent me. He said, "Oh, is this getting used?" This guy was just, and he had a day job, and he was just wrote this. I don't know. He wrote this one song, and I ended up using it like 3 times last year at NCAA, because it was as a bumper track, because it just fit. It just fit, but it was somebody I didn't know. So so yeah. If but a lot of times, I think you have that information that's out there. And now that we've got so much production going on here in this state, that. And then, but if you're familiar with the production, I'm not talking sports, because I mostly work with sports these days. But with any kind of other productions and shows that they use a certain genre of music that you're familiar with that show, and you think your music, which is a little more difficult, that area is difficult, and that is like if you have a relationship, because they have the world of music to look to.
Yeah, and I guess it's not necessarily from a show aspect. It's probably more so of those ad hoc projects that pop up, like something that we wouldn't be privy to, knowing that you're working on this new outtake for NFL. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those ad hoc projects that show up, are they pretty much the same case by case basis, or what I guess, can I, if we could be selfish for a moment, how can we benefit from our meeting with you in going to another level of getting music onto television or onto these shows, rather than just blindly submitting music, and they end up in your inbox for 5 years or whatever the case may be, and there may be a project that pop up that somebody's music would be good at, but both you and I know how the email box goes. So is there an outlet, or is there a probability of creating that outlet where maybe you can fashion, when I say you, not you, but somebody could fashion some type of network that'll say, okay, some producer drop something in the Dropbox, and hey, we're working on this, or maybe they start going to the Georgia Media Council or whatever the case may be, and saying, hey, we're working on this project, opening submissions from this point to that point, and this, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't know. I don't envy your side. I think that your side has got to be the hardest side. It's like you all with you creative people trying to get your music out there. That's got to be the hardest thing. I think, well, what you're doing is when you come to things like this, or you go to, things, and you're networking, you're meeting people, and you're doing that, because I don't know how you talk about, there's not like a list or something like that where you could go to these places, but you're in the music world. I mean, it seems like, I don't know, for music that I'm just trying to think, when I've used indie artist kind of things, I mean, there were just people I met that at events, and then it's just, if they sent me, and I'll tell you something. I don't keep music in my inbox. I listen to it. If it's trash, it's deleted. If I think it's going to work for something, I'll send it to a producer. It doesn't just sit in an inbox. So, but it's all, I mean, I think you hear this to death, but I think it's still true. I mean, you see relationships that you're making by going to a lot of these events, and then see, and I go to a lot of some of these events. I see the same people over and over again, and then it's how you're developing your relationships. And then it's just part of that. It's this, you're developing relationships. Oh, and it's not just where you're, in the face and here's my music, but you're really developing real relationships. Hey, what's going on with this? I mean, I've met a lot of people out here who then, then they have really good quality stuff, and then it's, they become, I had somebody who came by, and so I've used stuff that, like that, because it's people I've met, and they've had good stuff, or even even sometimes it didn't make it on the air, but I like it enough that I've pitched it to my producers to use it. So, but as I said, it's, I mean, I know you hear it to death, and it's always like, but it's just like you being here. It's like, you're networking, you're meeting and meeting other people. I mean, I said I did. I went to, was it last year when I went to the, I'll just throw a little story thing in here. I went to the, was it Atlanta Film Festival? And I was at one of the films, and it was funny, it was somebody and it was really a great film, and it was one that got picked up for distribution. And somebody asked a question in the audience. It was, it was one of these big theaters over at the, what is it, down at, no, it wasn't the Fox. It was the other one on Ponce, the other theater, the Plaza, and so somebody asked a question. They said, who was that artist? That music was very cool for this film, and it was funny. The producer said it was some guy that I found on YouTube on the internet. And he was like he had never even like done an album or done anything, but the guy thought, he heard this one song on YouTube, and he thought this would be kind of great for my film. And so he said I just love this story. So he contacted the guy. He had to really do a lot of research trying to find this guy, this artist that was on there. And he said, hey, look, I'm doing a film for a film festival. Would you be interested in scoring my film and doing all the music on it? And the guy, well, he said, I'd never done that before, but what the heck, And so he did this. He did this whole thing, and this guy, and here, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, this film had, and it had a couple of big actors in it, but it was the film festival, small, producer kind of thing. But another thing said it aired, nationwide and worldwide as a thing. But this guy has now got a credit that he's scored a film, but he and he didn't even get out there. He wasn't even networking. He was just like he found his music on YouTube. And I'll tell you a lot of that's where, when I tell you my producers are looking for, when they tell me when their music, a lot of the stuff is that they find their stuff on YouTube. They go on YouTube, they do searches, they look for something and it might have a line in there that fits it. It might be the feel that fits it. And I've had to go to, that's how I've gone to a lot of these kind of artists. It's just stuff that they find that's on YouTube. And that's a huge benefit for you. I mean, maybe you don't have the time to go to a gazillion networking events, but you know what? You got your stuff up there, and that's advertising for you. You have some quality material up there.
Is there, for kind of getting the audience, but is there anything that I guess they probably seem like they're trying to figure out too, and I would ask if I was in that thing, but is there any way that they can present their material so that is there like necessary information that they should be putting out there that would make it easier? So like say like if somebody has a YouTube something up there, should they always have a current email? Should they have, or if they were sending you a package, should they say, hey, or not even you, but maybe include that, hey, this is my song, I'm the producer, I own the publishing, I've already had it mixed and mastered, and is there anything like, you know what I mean, like that, like, because I sit in all these things, and a lot of people always think that there's a particular one way to get on or do things, and it's never like that. People are getting discovered other ways, but then I hear stories of people like songs or like music, and then they can't contact the artist. So if they are doing something on YouTube or sending an email, is there like some standard information that would make it even easier for you to maybe, select them or something?
That's actually a great question. That is a great question. That yes, if you have your material on YouTube, if you have it, you know what? You need to have a website. You really need to have a website, and you need to, on that website, you need to have that little link that says contact, because I have had these artists before that where some producers found something that they want to use, and I have not been able to track down that artist. I had something, and it was last year, and it was for the opening of the NBA All-Star game. I had an artist that was, and he said he did not have a label. His website was on Facebook. So I had to send him a message on Facebook saying, I want to license your music for the opening of the All-Star game. The guy never got back to me, never answered, and still never, ever. Yeah. So it was, so that's an excellent question. You really, just to have your stuff out there, and you need to have contact info. Also, if you're sending things out, you need to say, it would be helpful to say, that I don't have samples. Yeah, I mean, if you're sending out something out, your tracks out through the email or something, that I own this, or I have it and Warner Chappell has half of it, or whatever, and then it's it's sample. There's no samples in it. I handle all the licensing. I can license it from you, or just to have that contact and have that information. So that is very key. But there's, and I'll say, even with some of the not the highest, but the mid-range artists, the ones that are almost that are even they're difficult to find, because a lot of artists they've chosen because they're doing themselves, and they're on Facebook. But I have had some. I'm not putting on Facebook, because I did have another artist on that I've used, and a couple of them that have Facebook. They were, I guess the Facebook page was their kind of their contact instead of having a website. And I contacted them, but they monitor it, and they got back to me, and then I did some back and forth. But at least they have the contact. But you have to have, if you're going to have a website, make sure you have that little thing that says the contact, and say for licensing, contact so and so. Because we need to have that contact. It's so frequent that we can't find certain information.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to add, first of all, everybody in here deserves a round of applause for actually making it out, because under the conditions, it shows that there is a certain level of dedication. But one of the things we want to make sure you guys understand, like, this isn't, a workshop. None of these workshops are going to tell you about shortcuts. If anything, you should come here and look at to gain perspective on, just how to, just utilize this experience, for your personal gain. I think if anything, something that people overlook, are credits. At the end of every show, there's a list of credits. Those producers that she goes to, that she's talking to, those interns, those segment producers. I mean, maybe that's something too that you could probably help them out in terms of just understanding. We talk about contracts and things like that, but we never talk about credits. Helping them decipher, like, okay, who are the key people that they could sort of lock in on. And man, we're in a day and age of social media. It's like sometimes you may want to identify who those people are and look them up. See if they're on social media. Follow them, send them a message, and figure out, who are the people that they're next to, and you might be able to get your track to them too. So that's something else that, you guys should think about in terms of, putting in that work to get to those people and getting in those networks. So maybe that's something too that you could sort of get a perspective on how they could particularly find, certain people in those positions of power that can get their music played.
Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion. One of the things, besides when you just see a produced by, because you might have some, that might be some huge name, look at the editor. Who's the editor on there? Because if the editors are the ones in the end of the day that are sitting there at the, in mixing that promo or that show, and they're deciding, that this is what's going to go in there, so yeah, when you're looking at that's actually really good, and LinkedIn is a great tool. Everybody's on. Everybody. That's a great networking tool. But that is as far as those. If you're looking at who these creative people are, right? You can look them up. You can find out what they're. You can say you see something on there and you see that you look who that editor is, and then you can look who that or something, and then you can go on and you research. You could look up on IMDb or whatever. You can see what else they're working on, and so that's a great name. And that's actually makes kind of things. All of this social. Go back into social media. It makes it. That's a great tool for you to promote yourself. Just to say us on the production end that, we're promoting production on that, but you can promote yourself. And said you have the on the LinkedIn. I mean, I get, but just you to go on there and to research those people. But take a look. Yeah, you get familiar with who's doing what, because on those shows, like I said, but also there's the producer, the associate producer, right? You can see a lot of, obviously, if you see some of my shows, it's like the head producer might be Steven Spielberg. He's not the one sitting there picking the music. Look who sees the, right, he's last, but look, who's the, who are the other producers and the editors? And, look at that. That's who it could be, and you could just somehow start some kind of a, hey, I've got some music, and I want to. I think if you want to do a relationship, and I'll tell you, don't feel like you're bothering for the most part. I mean, these people, if they're using a lot of music in their show, you're going to be their best friend, because you got to think they got to look for a lot of music, and they're trying to fill their spots. They're trying to put in the most creative kind of thing, and actually, so this is the great time for, if you're all independents, because I hear it now a lot more. We want something that's different, or something that not everyone is doing. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've had to clear Uptown Funk. Now it's like everybody wants something, that's something that's new and different that not everybody's using. And so they want something that's not being, in fact, I get, even between my networks, if I clear something for one network, it's like, oh, we don't want to use, the other one doesn't want to use that now. It's like, they want something that's fresh and new and different, but, good quality stuff.
We got 2 more questions, I believe.
You mentioned Uptown Funk. Is there any royalties associated with the licensing from your standpoint paid to the artist and the producer. As you know, that song was everywhere. I mean, I've got tired of hearing it. You can learn the lyrics just from the bumpers that you were mentioning. So, is there any royalties that's associated with that to the artist, or is that strictly from the performance right organizations?
I got sick of licensing that track. It's like 2 record labels and 10 publishers. It's like, you know, it's not really a royalty. That's not for what my purposes. It was not a royalty thing. I mean, I had to go to both the record labels and I had to go to all the publishers and I had to negotiate the deals on, you know, for the sync rights, synchronization rights, master use rights, but those were not what I was working on. Were not royalty based things. The royalties come on. That's different. I mean, the 2 different kinds of. There's the royalties, as I said, from an album, which is nothing what I'm dealing with. But there's also, I guess, royalties also pertains to with acting. You know, like probably SAG kind of thing, which is totally different than what we're dealing with here. But and that's if, you know, say the artist in performance, but not as far as it's more as a sync. It's all in the sync rights.
I have one last question right here, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Oh.
Do you have a good email that I can send you stuff?
We're gonna have an opportunity to network, so if you want to ask that to her directly. One last question here.
Hey, how you doing? I'm actually an aspiring music supervisor. I was wondering kind of the best way to get your foot into that industry in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so as a music supervisor, which that would be where you're actually, as opposed to what I'm doing now, I'm dealing with the producers and then they're telling me that they want this or that and like that. So as the music supervisor, now you're the one that's sitting there with the show and then you're watching the tape of the show or whatever. You know, so that wouldn't pertain to any sports. That's usually TV and film. So then you're watching that show and you're thinking that this would be good and this would be good and this might be good in that way. So I'm going to tell you what makes a better music supervisor than what doesn't, because I actually deal with hiring a lot of music supervisors for some of the productions. So what they're doing is, what makes a better one is one that understands music clearance and licensing. And because there's a lot of there's some music supervisors out there, and they're really just music pickers, you know? Because anybody who is creative at all can sit there and watch a show and say, "Oh, this song would be great. Oh, I think I want to put, all I do is win here, and I want to put this Kanye West song in there, and I wanted this." But see, that's not really a good music supervisor. And then somebody else has to go and clear that music that you put in there, and some of that music not be clearable and not be that. What makes the good music supervisor is because you not only know what you think would do that, but you're also familiar with licensing, and you know how to do licensing, and you know music as far as fees and that kind of thing, because you're the one who's going to be knowing, oh, I want to put this, Kanye track in here. So you're already knowing that you're talking about label and saying, I know I'm the supervisor on this show and I want to put the Kanye track in there and this is our budget and this, that. So you're very familiar with the licensing aspect in addition to the clearance part, the creative part. So that's, really the key thing. And then I think what you need to do first then is, if you're working on, there's a lot of production going on here and these, new little productions here, the best way to start that is to do the clearance, is to get into the clearance world, and do the clearance world first. Not do it where you're doing the music picking for the show first. Because then, you're adding stuff in there that's not clearable or not this, or you're ending up and then you're done with putting all this stuff in, and then they hire another clearance person to go and clear the music you picked, and you've got $1 million production. So yeah, get in the clearance world first. And I think a good way is that just get on one of these there's so much, productions going on around here. Then once you've done clearance and you understand about clearance, you deal with the publishers, you get relationships with the publishers, you deal with the labels, then you get into that. I mean, I said a lot of people, because a lot of people, no, I said I've been doing clearance, for many, many, many years, and a lot of people who are doing it since I did, then they wanted to be music supervisors after that. I don't want to. I enjoy what I do too much. I don't want to do that aspect of it. But that is the next step. I think you starting by doing some clearance and licensing, and the way that you do that here is by doing that with a production, and doing that. But you really, in order to be a better music supervisor, you need to understand and know about these fees and that kind of thing, and the whole structure of that. So good luck.
And one thing before I let Sammy close, I was going to say, like, I think, well, Janet said, said one thing multiple times, and I'm hoping everybody picked up on it. This networking thing. You guys are a little bit younger, but it's kind of like y'all see a pretty girl and you trying to hump her and marry her real quick. You gotta meet her, take her out a couple times, date her. You know what I mean? This is just the icebreaker. Like, hey, I saw you in the mall one time, or we were in a class together, or whatever. Y'all met Janet, so just imagine, if you ever see her again or you run into her, it was only 30 of you here. That's the start of the relationship. It ain't the run up and get an email and send 40 things to it, because then you just approached it the wrong way. It's like, hey, man, I met you at Patchwerk. You spoke, you said some cool things, and kind of keep it moving. And then, hey, you know what? I saw you at the Hawks game and blah, blah, blah. And then one time she's probably going to say, well, what are you working on? And then it gives you an opportunity. And a lot of times, people aren't even ready for their opportunity, because if you do get her email and send something and it ain't mixed and it ain't done right, she just told you the most important thing is the sound quality and stuff like that. So sometimes it's a reason, but these things are just, they like icebreakers. You just saw the girl in your classroom and you can't ask to marry her. And you can't try to jump on her leg and hump on her right there. You know what I mean? Just acknowledge that, hey, I thought you was cute or whatever, and kind of keep it moving. And then the other thing too, I wanted to, again, I talked to most of you guys upstairs, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out. I wanted to thank Janet for coming out with the weather, what it was or whatever, and give Sammy, we had another host all last year, so this was Sammy's first time hosting an event, and wanted to thank her for doing a good job. And the other thing too is that only other thing I want to say is that all of these people typically Oz is usually over the workshops and stuff. So all of the people that we bring up here, it's generally real people, which is funny because a lot of times people in the industry keep running into that hype. You know what I mean? So like the funny thing is when she tells you, like, I mean, when you got a person that's really, really doing their job, they really doing their job. She tells you, I'm not like me, I take every phone call, I answer every email. She just told you she listens to everything, you know what I mean? It's the hype people that you keep running into that's just deleting your stuff that you're getting a read receipt that they didn't even open your email. And, the people that are really, really doing it are actually really, really doing it, and they've been really, really doing it for a long time because they're actually doing their job. So, just take heed to what she was saying, network, and even if it just ain't her, take the same approach to some of the other people. And then the other thing that I heard her say, which is I always tell people, I'm not going to do your homework for you. So there's some homework that needs to be done to figure out how you want to get to where you want to get to. So networking, do the homework, and then it ain't about the person that's willing to knock on every door. The most important thing is what you're going to say when the door open up. So all that banging, if you ain't ready, and she be like, okay, play me your stuff now, and it's garbage, you just been eliminated for the rest of your life. So just take the opportunities for what they are, meet the people and kind of keep it moving. And then, like you say, anytime you see her name pop up on something else, maybe go to that event or something like that, and then kind of establish a relationship before you ask for something. And then I'll let Sammy, I told you guys upstairs, some people weren't here. Typically we'll announce the workshops are every 3 weeks. February what? February 13th? All right, cool. Yeah, they said they ain't worried about Valentine's Day. So I did ask Oz that. But anyway, like I'll tell you this, and it ain't official, but I asked a friend of mine to do the next one. Like I said, he's been a national radio promotions director for Universal for about 18 years. And we just want to do one on trying to help artists figure out how actually the radio game works and stuff like that. And then I'll let Sammy close.
Well, thank you, Curtis. And
One thing, real quick.
one more thing.
One thing. Can you suggest maybe one book or something that you know what I mean? You got any good books or something that you may have read that they can kind of help to do a little bit of homework if you gave an assignment?
There are a few books out there, actually. There's old books been around for a long time. There's it's the one, the Donald Passman book. Is it the something with the yeah? There's a couple of them. There's one Don Passman. An attorney in L.A. that does a lot, and he wrote a book. It's, I think, the art of music licensing or something. And then there's another. There's a couple of oh gosh. Questions, but there is one that's pretty standard about that. But but you could read on. There's so much information in that. But it is a good. Yeah, there's another one. It's written by Cohn, one of the Cohn brothers, and he's like one of the heads of ASCAP or something. But it's like this thick. But but there's another one. There's a few of them out there that you can just see. There's Understanding the Music Business, but there are a couple of very specific ones. Look for one. It's like music licensing, but Don Passman is the writer on that one. I can't remember the exact title of it, but it's really good. Just for your basic, kind of overview, because back to right, you really, if you're representing yourself, and you're out there and you've got your music out there, you want to make sure that you have as much knowledge as you can, so so that you're in there, because if you're negotiating on your own behalf, you want to know, know your stuff. You want to make sure you're, either not getting taken advantage of, or you don't want to be like, oh man, I could have got more money for that or whatever, or maybe you're going to go with gratis on a project that you think is going to make you famous. So, but anyway, but anyway, these there's a couple of books on that kind of thing. That's a good suggestion to read up on.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank Janet Way one more time for coming out. If you guys gave her a round of applause. All right, and I want to thank Curtis for all of his wisdom he shared with us. In our next workshop,